So the topic today is schar mitzvah mitzvah. What is this concept? What's this idea? So there's a couple of ways that we can talk about it. One way is we can try to define it. We can try to talk about what is the mitzias. How does it work? Another way is to talk about how to teach it, how to explain it, how to introduce it to another. Specifically, how to teach it to our children as a value. And we could approach it from either direction, meaning to talk about it objectively or to talk about it subjectively. Either way we approach it, the two are going to dovetail and they're going to come together in one point. So I'll just start from the subjective point of view. I'll start from how to introduce this as a value and why to introduce it as a value and what the effects are on a child or even on an adult when they understand this concept. And then we'll get into it a little bit more objectively. What's the mechanics of it? How does it work? The Mishnah tells us very clearly, Al tiyu ka'avodim v'meshamshim esarav amnas l'kabel pras. Don't be like the servants who serve their master in order to receive a reward. So what does that mean? First of all, does it mean that there is no reward? We know there were those who were mistaken by this teaching, who took it to mean that there is no reward. So that would be a vastly erroneous misinterpretation of the teaching. What is the teaching coming to tell us? Teaching is actually coming to tell us something the opposite. There is a reward. It's a great reward, and it's so great, I'm asking you, don't think about it. If you'll think about it, it will actually take away from what you need to be doing. Ignore the reward, pretend it's not there. Not because it's not there, but precisely because it is there. It's so great, it's so wondrous, and we don't want you to get caught up in it. There was a study that was done in the workplace, various different corporations, corporate structures, and they were studying different management styles. And one of the findings was they were trying to find out how much of an incentive, or literally how productive were incentives in producing greater productivity from workers. So things like a bonus, extra vacation time, or extra pay. And you would think that obviously, we know how people work. People work reward and punishment. So you give people incentives and you motivate them. And that's what everyone would think. And then a study was done, a long-term study, and they looked at the statistics and they found something very unusual. Actually, incentives did not necessarily increase productivity, and in many cases it decreased productivity. So then they looked into it. Why? How? When? Where? And basically, here's what they found. There's a difference between an extrinsic motivator and an intrinsic motivator. What's an extrinsic motivator and what's an intrinsic motivator? An extrinsic motivator means that the reward actually has nothing to do with the work itself. So for instance, we've all been to school, we've all been children, and we know that the teacher might say, okay, kinderlach, if everyone cleans the classroom, if everyone straightens up their place, then we're all going to get a lollipop. Clean up your place, we'll have a clean classroom, and everyone will be rewarded, we'll get a piece of candy, a little lollipop. Now, let's think about this. Does the action of cleaning a space in any way generate, in any level of cause and effect, that a lollipop should appear? There's absolutely no natural cause and effect. What's happened is the teacher has made an arbitrary decision, okay? It could have been a lollipop, it could have been $5, it could have been an elephant. It's a totally arbitrary decision. The teacher chooses, it's going to be a lollipop. And then imports that reward into the situation as a motivator. But in this case, the motivator is an extrinsic motivator. It really, extrinsic, meaning coming from the outside. It doesn't really have anything to do with the work itself. Now let's juxtapose this, let's contrast this with an adult. You have a home, and you want to clean your house. So when you're an adult, and you have your own home, and you clean your home, what is the reward for cleaning your home? You have a clean home. You have a clean home. Nobody has to give you a lollipop to clean your home. And in fact, when you're sitting in a messy house and you don't care for a clean home, so you don't clean the house. And as soon as you care to have a clean house, you're motivated to clean house. But it's an intrinsic motivator. In other words, the task itself has value. The task itself is productive, and the reward is what the task accomplishes. That's an intrinsic motivator. Okay. So what they found was that an extrinsic motivator becomes a distraction. Now, where is that less of a problem? Where is it more of a problem? If the work is real schlepper work, mindless work, okay, ditch digging, then that's when the extrinsic motivator is most effective. It's still not as effective as an intrinsic motivator, which we'll speak about in a second, but that's where an extrinsic motivator is most effective, if the work is mindless. In today's day and age, by the way, most work is not mindless. Most people have to think a little bit. And a lot of people have to, all their work, it's all with the mind. When the work is mental, when the work requires focus, concentration, thought, that's when an extrinsic motivator actually becomes a huge liability. Because what happens, you're supposed to be thinking about the task at hand, and what are you doing? You're thinking about the reward. So it becomes actually a liability. What's an intrinsic motivator? An intrinsic motivator is that the task itself has value. Nobody has to motivate me to do it. The greatest motivation is the accomplishment of the task. Well, if the greatest motivation is the accomplishment of the task, then the motivation and the performance of the task go hand in hand. And the more that I'm focused on the goal, the more I'm focused on the task. And the more I'm focused on the task, the more I'm focused on the goal. They go together organically because the reward and the productivity that leads to the reward are one and the same. It's one thing. So you think about it like this. When Hashem tells us, Kinderloch, we're going to clean up the classroom. And if you clean up the room, you're going to get a lollipop. Is that what it's like? Rather, what does Hashem tell us? He says, Kinderloch, here's the deal. I made a world. I made the world that it should become perfect. It has the potential to be perfect. I put it in your hands. It's your job. You're the ones who have to make it perfect. Clean up the world. How do we clean up the world? Mitzvahs. That's how we clean up the world. Hashem gave us His infinite power. He gave us these tools called mitzvahs. They have godly power, and they make the world a more godly place. In other words, make Hashem feel at home in His world. Make Him feel that, or rather show that the world belongs to Him all along. And every time we do a mitzvah, we make a little bit more of a dir of tachteinu, we make a little bit more that Hashem should feel at home. And there's a critical mass, a tipping point, as it were, like Rambam speaks about, that a person should always see the world like balanced on the scales, completely even, between merit and the opposite, and one action can tip the scales. So ultimately, the tipping of the scales means we usher in a perfect world. So what's the reward for working on perfecting the world? A perfect world. An intrinsic motivator. In other words, let's talk about chinuch. One of the worst things you can do to turn off a child, to send them a message that what you're asking them to do is a burden, is by bribing them. Punishing them is bad, but bribing them is also bad. Because what if you told them that the work itself isn't intrinsically valuable? V'haraya, what's the greatest proof? It wasn't even worth doing unless you'd be paid for it. So in other words, you have to. You have to. It's not a very good message. Rather, what's the message you want to send? You get to. You get to. So how do you take a child from, I have to do the mitzvah, to, I get to do the mitzvah? Well, if the mitzvah's reward is extrinsic, then I have to do it. And I make a cheshbon, I want the reward, okay, so I have to do the mitzvah. But it's a burden. I'm just making cost-benefit analysis. I'm willing to give up certain convenience, certain luxury, certain pleasure, in order to have this reward, but I have to do it. As opposed to the real attitude we really want to convey, which is really the truth, I get to. I'm involved in something that's productive, I'm involved in something that changes the world, I'm involved in something that has inherent value, my mitzvah actually does something, it's a real thing, makes the world perfect, I can have a little part in that. I get to. I get to. Now, what about, here's a question. You learn a Masechta and you make a siyum. Okay, especially with a kid. A kid finishes his first Masechta and you make a siyum. So, is that extrinsic reward or intrinsic reward? Well, it depends how you do it. It depends how you do it. So this mitzvah is a very important thing. You know, there was a community that was, back in the Alteheim, they were experiencing some serious problems, and nobody could attribute what the cause was. Everyone was mafashfish b'maisav, but what could they do? And came along the Rav, and he said, the problem is like this, everybody does mitzvahs, and everybody learns. But we have a problem here. We have a kitzur from the Samach Mem. The Samach Mem is Rosh Tevis. Sudas mitzvah ein la'asais. So you're accomplishing, but you're not celebrating. So it's a beautiful thing to celebrate a mitzvah. But what's the point? Celebrating the mitzvah. You didn't finish a Masechta because you're having a Suda. You're having a Suda because you finished a Masechta, which has inherent value, which you're happy about, which you're rejoicing over. It's sort of like Shabbos. Is it Shabbos because Mas Kegel? Or Mas Kegel behind the Shabbos? So they used to have a minig, maybe some still do. A regular Shabbos, you have one kugel. And in a special Shabbos where there's two Sifrei Torah, you have two kugel. And when a really special Shabbos, like 3 Sifrei Torah, like for instance, Shabbos or Shchodesh, Tevis, when you have Hanukkah, and you have 3 Sifrei Torah, and then there are 3 kugels. So the question always was, is that a good minig or is it not a good minig? And the answer is, well, Svenzach, it depends entirely. If when you're sitting by the Shabbos table, and they bring out the kugel, and you think, Torah, that's a very nice minig. But if you're in shul and they open the Oren Kodesh, and Sifrei Torah come out, and you think, kugel, then it's not such a good thing. At any rate, the point is like this. Shabbos has inherent value. Shabbos is Shabbos. In order to celebrate it, in order to mark that, I will do things to celebrate it. But I'm not using the kugel to create a Shabbos. Shabbos is there already. The kugel is the celebration of Shabbos. So this mitzvah isn't my reward for learning Masechta. My reward for learning Masechta is the greatest reward in the world. I learned Chachmasa Ritzaini Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I learned the Eibishter's Torah. There's no greater reward than that. And I'm so happy about having done that, of course I'm going to make a meal and invite my friends. And this is so with everything. Mitzvahs have real impact. If mitzvahs have real impact, then every motivation for a mitzvah is the intrinsic motivation. Schar mitzvah mitzvah. You know, I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding what that means. Schar mitzvah mitzvah. Sometimes the way people talk about it is schar mitzvah mitzvah means that the reward for a good deed is the good feeling that you get. Is that even a Jewish way to? Is that a Jewish attitude? The reward for a good deed is the good feeling you get. And what if you don't get the good feeling? It's not about you. It's about the intrinsic value of the deed. The deed has value. So if you do a good thing, you get to feel good. And what if you don't feel good? You know Abraham Lincoln, 16th President of the United States? He used to say, I do good, I feel good. I do bad, I feel bad. That is my religion. And that's very profound for an Erlich Hagoy, but for a Jew, that doesn't even come into levels of acceptable kavanas mitzvahs. I do good, I feel good. I do bad, I feel bad. So basically, your religion is about making yourself feel good. Well, what if I find other ways to make myself feel good? What if I find ways of feeling good now, instead of deferring how I feel good in Elam Haba? We don't do things for a good feeling. We don't do things for a reward. We do things for one reason: that the act itself has value. And if you are sensitive and you understand that the act has value, that's the only motivation that you need. And it also might happen to feel good. It also might happen to improve your life in this world. But that's not the reason you do it. Would you be makad of somebody and tell them, become frum and it'll improve your life? Why would you set them up to have such a shallow relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu? Why don't you tell them, you're a Yid, your neshama was sent to the world for a purpose. Live according to your purpose. Ani loy nivresi, ela l'shamash eskoini. Ani loy nivresi. I didn't even have to be created. Ela l'shamash eskoini. The Eibishter has some expectations for me. And when I wake up in the morning and I say Meida Ani, there's two pshatim in Meida Ani. Rabbi Monosecha. So one pshat, Pashat pshat, is the Eibishter is very faithful. Because at night you go to sleep. You leave your neshama with him as a pekadim. And in the morning, he has so much amunah, he is so faithful, he is so trustworthy, he gives you your neshama back. Another pshat is that if he wakes you up in the morning, he must really believe in you. Rabbi Munasecha, you're saying to the Eibishter, Rabbi Munasecha, you have so much amunah. Eibishter, you have so much amunah in me. The Eibishter has amunah in me. He woke me up again today. He must feel that I have a contribution to make. You know the story, well-known story about Reb Zushya, that he was crying. It was before his histalkus. And the Talmidim asked Rebbe, why are you crying? And he said, I'm afraid of judgment. And they said, Rebbe, you lived a perfect life, so if you're afraid of judgment, it doesn't bode very well for the rest of us. And he said, my sons, you don't get it. I'm not afraid I'm going to come to Mila and they're going to say, Zushya, why weren't you like Avraham Avinu? Zushya, why weren't you like Moshe Rabbeinu? I'm very concerned they're going to look at my life, they're going to look at me, and they're going to say, Zushya, why weren't you like Zushya? So every single neshama is sent to this world, born at this time, in this place, to this family, mother and father, this location, to live this many years and months and days and hours and seconds. And every single moment of that is because your neshama has a unique mission that no neshama ever has accomplished before. No neshama will ever accomplish afterward. Ani loy nivresi, I didn't have to be created, but rather, l'shamash eskoini, Hashem has use for me. And I'm here to be useful to Him. And how am I useful to Him? By doing mitzvahs. And when I understand that's the purpose of my life, there's nothing more deeply fulfilling than accomplishing something productive and accomplishing what my very essence is designed for. And I need no extrinsic motivation to do that. Now it happens to work out better because when you live in congruence with what your essence is designed for, so you're not fighting yourself, you're not fighting reality, so things tend to move smoothly. Things tend to move in a healthy direction because we're going with the divine design. But we don't do it in order to have that result. If we do it in order to have that result, extrinsic motivator, it takes away from our ability to actually produce the result. Tell you a maisa, a Meiridik a maisa. There was a Holocaust survivor, Baba V'Chassid, named Shlomo Vas. Shlomo was in Auschwitz, and he knew he had a friend from before the war, named Yossi Gross. And they were in Auschwitz at the same time. And towards the end of the war, they were losing the war. They knew they were losing the war. They didn't even have they didn't have bullets left to shoot with. And some captain got an idea, how are they going to finish off a bunch of Jews that they had? They had a meat freezer, a walk-in freezer. They took the whole barracks and they locked everybody in the freezer. That's it, they closed the door. And Shlomo Vas tells the story. He says, I'm locked in the freezer, and I see every single person there sort of, slowing down. No one had any koyach. No one had koyach. So, the cold is slowing them down. And one by one, people sort of drift off, and they fall asleep. And it's understood that if the freezer doesn't open very, very soon, people who fall asleep never wake up. That's just understood. So he's trying to preserve his strength and what little tiny bit of strength he has. And trying to stay awake. He must stay awake. He must not fall asleep. And as he's thinking about this, have to keep my strength, he hears a voice, Shlomo, ich bin kalt, I'm cold, rub my shoulders. And he looks in front of him. In front of him is Yossi, his old friend. So Yossi wants to rub his shoulders, he rubs Yossi's shoulders. And he's thinking to himself, this could be my last ounce of strength. These skin and bones, they have, how many calories do they consume a day? Watery soup, if you can even call it a soup. And he's thinking, this could be literally my last ounce of strength coming out of me right now. But Yossi asked me to rub his shoulders. Well, what else should I do? I'm going to rub his shoulders, and he did it. And then after a while, Yossi got quiet. So, not to be morbid, but to be realistic, once Yossi got quiet, if you're trying to stay alive and preserve every ounce of strength, you cannot afford to rub a dead person's shoulders. So Yossi was quiet, he stopped rubbing his shoulders. And some time passed, and he heard again Yossi's voice, Shlomo, ich bin kalt. Oh, he's still there, he's still with us. Rub my shoulders, okay? What can I do? And Shlomo rubs his shoulders, and this is Mesiras Nefesh Mamish. Mesiras Nefesh Mamish. He is giving his life for his friend. And it goes through the evening like this. Yossi whimpers and cries, Shlomo rubs his shoulders, Yossi gets quiet, Shlomo stops. Until finally, the door opens. And when they were locked in there, it was the middle of the night, it was pitch black out. Now the door opens, they have no idea how much time they've been in there, obviously, but as the door opens, they see it's broad daylight. And the soldiers are wearing Russian uniforms. Okay, the war is over, and everyone is free to go home. And Shlomo says, I looked around the freezer, and I saw that every single man in that freezer that night had succumbed to the cold. They'd frozen to death. They didn't get up, except for two people, Yossi and I. Now, Yossi was alive because I rubbed his shoulders all night. I was alive because I rubbed Yossi's shoulders all night. The intrinsic value of the mitzvah. You don't do it for any benefit you might accrue. You even do it prepared to lose everything. You even do it ad mesiras nefesh mamish. But it happens to work out. It happens to work out. Wouldn't you know it? In Hashem's world that He has designed, the world that Hashem created, with Torah as the blueprint, that when you live according to your divinely designed purpose, it tends to work out well in Elam Hazeh as well. Now we can't question why there are nisyonos, and why the righteous suffer, and why the wicked prosper, and the Eibishter has his cheshbonos. And that's something we have emunah, we accept. But derech klal, generally speaking, when we live according to our purpose, things tend to work out. but we don't do it because it's going to cause things to work out. So, Shlomo did not have in mind to use Yossi as a way of keeping himself moving all night and keeping himself alive. To the contrary, he believed the only reason he was doing it is to do the right thing, to be of service in whatever way he could be of service that moment. So let's talk about this. A neshama goes l'mayla after 120, and it experiences profound pleasure in Elam Haba, based on all the mitzvahs that it did and all the Torah that it learned in this world. Ne'enim miziv hashchina. It's a beautiful thing. Is that the ultimate reward? I won't call it an extrinsic motivation. It is an intrinsic motivation, because the ziv hashchina, the tainug that the neshama experiences in Elam Haba, actually is when it observes the oir, to use a spiritual term, the light, the spiritual value of the mitzvahs that it did in this world. So it's an inherent or intrinsic motivator. Okay, you do a mitzvah, there's a physical value, there's a spiritual value, and the neshama can't see it down here because the guf blocks it off. But in Ilmus Elohim, in higher worlds, so the filters are lifted away, and we can see what really happened. And when the neshama, by the way, that's what Gehenna is also, conversely, that when the neshama has to go through that temporary process, when it sees how profoundly negative its Avedas were, so that is a great pain for a neshama. And then after that, the washing up process is finished, then it can spend an eternity going higher and higher levels of Gan Eden, seeing, when you really see, it's like, I'll give you an example. Yesterday in London, somebody came over to me and told me, last time you were in England, we had an interaction, and I vaguely remember the person, and I vaguely remember the interaction, and they told me that based on that interaction, a whole chain of hashgacha pratis sort of unfolded, and they said it changed my life, and it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Now, I know I'm just really lucky to have been in that place at that time, and whatever I said, I don't know, but, I'm grateful the Eibishter used me as a shliach for that kind of thing, and not for, Magal Schosai de Zakai. So it's very humbling, and it's, I feel very grateful that that's how the Eibishter used me in that particular case. What I'm saying is, you find out that something you did had a profound impact, it feels great. It feels great. You find out what it really did, what the real value of your action is. So that's Gan Eden. In Gan Eden, the neshama has the blinders lifted. It's not blocked by the grabkeit of Gashmias, and unfettered from the body, the soul can actually see. Here's what my mitzvah accomplished. Here's what it did. Okay, and that's what Gan Eden is, and it's an intrinsic motivator. It's an intrinsic motivator. You're actually seeing the clean room that you made. You cleaned the room. You made a clean room. You get to see the clean room. However, it's not the deepest level of intrinsic motivator, because it's not the ultimate effect of what your mitzvah really accomplishes. There's something more that your mitzvah will accomplish, something even greater. See, mitzvahs, for thousands of years, Yidden have been doing mitzvahs and making light in higher worlds, in Gan Eden. But eventually the goal is, we want to tip the scales down here and have that tipping point down here and make this world holy and make this world perfect. We call that Yemei Mashiach. And ultimately, not just Yemei Mashiach, because Ein Bein Yemei Mashiach and Elam Hazeh El Shibud Malchus Bilvad. So at first, Yemei Mashiach is just safety, security. It's a political thing. But then ultimately, in another phase, there's Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead, which is one of the fundamental tenets of our faith. And really what it means is that this world becomes the place to be. This world becomes holier than heaven. This world becomes holier than heaven. And what made this world holier than heaven? Who made this world holier than heaven? I did, at least in small part. I got to be I didn't have to. I got to. I had the privilege to be part of making that happen. So the ultimate intrinsic motivation is Mashiach. So it's interesting. The neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu, every Zayin Adar, has another aliyah, 3,300 and however many years. Every single year on his Yortzeit, Moshe Rabbeinu goes to a higher madrega in Gan Eden. And he's been doing this for over 3 millennia. And then there will come a point, Mirza Hashem, very soon, where Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama, in the highest level of Gan Eden, will be called to return to this world. Oz Yashir Moshe, right? Mikan Tchias HaMesim Min HaTorah. We just read it in the Sedra this previous Shabbos, right? Oz Yashir Moshe, in the future tense. Mikan Tchias HaMesim Min HaTorah. It's not a spiritual thing; it's a physical thing. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Oves, Amech Kulam Tzadikim, all Yidden from all days, will come down from the highest levels of Gan Eden and come back into this world. So think about it like this. If Gan Eden is the ultimate reward, what are we troubling these poor Halik and Neshamas to make them come back into bodies again? Because that is the ultimate reward. That is the ultimate accomplishment. Coming back into a body the second time is not like it was this time. This time, Gashmias was blocking Ruchnias. The finite was blocking the infinite. But when Mashiach comes, and this Tchias HaMesim, and this world becomes holier than heaven, what does it mean? How can this world be holier than heaven? There'll be a Chiddush. There'll be Gashmias, but it won't block Ruchnias. It will reveal Ruchnias. There will be the finite. This is kind of mind-blowing, but if you're philosophically bent, you might enjoy it. There will be the finite, but it won't block the infinite. You will see the true infinity of infinity, because infinity will not just be in the infinite, but the infinite that's revealed through the finite. Because if infinity is only infinite, it's lacking some aspect of infinity. When infinity is seen in the finite, that is the complete revelation of infinity. In other words, the body will give nurture to the soul. This world will become the ultimate purpose for all creation that it was when Hashem created it. So that's what we're really doing mitzvahs for. And every single mitzvah builds a brick. It accomplishes, it brings about that reality. How much time do I have here? As much as I want, infinite time? 5 minutes? Okay. 6 minutes, okay, very good. We'll play it safe, we'll say 5, then it'll become 6. Okay. What's the difference between a mashpia and a makabel? So, many times people will translate that as a giver and a taker. But actually it's not. Mashpia and makabel is not a giver and taker. Mashpia and makabel is a giver and an even bigger giver. A makabel is not a taker. A makabel ends up being an even bigger giver. What's the example? You know that half a truth is worse than a whole lie? Kind of like what's worse than finding a worm in your apple? Half a worm, right? Yeah. Half a truth is worse than a whole lie. What's half the truth? Half the truth is that a makabel, like it says in Zayar about Malchus, which is the Sfira, which is makabel from the higher Sfiras. Leis lo mirgar maklum, she has nothing for herself. So half the truth is Malchus and every makabel, whether it be Malchus of Atzilus, or whether it be femininity, a woman is a makabel, or whether it be the day of Shabbos, in time, Shabbos is makabel for the 6 days, that a makabel has nothing for herself. So she's totally just waiting for the mashpia to come initiate. So like for instance, Shabbos has nothing for herself. If you decide all of a sudden, Friday night, oh, you know what, I didn't run around shopping, I didn't cook, I didn't clean, I didn't even put up a cholent, let's do it now. You can't, it's over, it's done. Pencils down, turn in your tests. Shabbos is here. So from that perspective, Shabbos is kind of a nebuchal. She can't even make a cholent. If Shabbos is to have a cholent, it has to have been made for her by Friday, or by Thursday, or Wednesday, or Tuesday, or whatever, but right. She's totally dependent. That's half the story. What's the other half of the story? The other half of the story is, yeah, but she doesn't just take that cholent and then return it. You know? What does Malchus do? What does every real Makabel do? It's not a receptacle, it's a recipient. See, a receptacle is like this cup. I'm going to say something that you can't challenge because you probably don't know. How many ounces is this cup?
10 fluid ounces.
How many?
10. It's exactly the cover.
10 fluid ounces. Wow, I thought you guys would only know the milliliters, but that's impressive. Thank you. 10 fluid ounces. We have an accurate measurement here. 10 fluid ounces. So let me ask you this question. If I fill this to the brim with water, how many ounces of water can I get out of this cup? 10, thank you. Okay. What if I fill it with chocolate milk? How many ounces? 10. What if I fill it with beer? How many ounces? 10 ounces. Okay, so it really doesn't matter what beverage I put in here. I can't get out of a 10-ounce cup any more than 10 ounces because it's merely a receptacle. A receptacle is some place where you just put something. It's just a container. It just holds on to it. It's like a savings account, right? You know what would go ahead and do with their money, right? You just put it in there. It doesn't get any interest or gets less interest than inflation. But if you're Jewish, you got to invest. Wherever you put your money, it has to grow, right? So a recipient is not a receptacle. What's a recipient? This cup is just a receptacle. A recipient would be like the earth, the dirt. You take a seed. You take the seed and you put it in the dirt. Now, the seed goes in the dirt. The dirt's not just going to hold on to the seed and then pop it out later. What's going to happen is the dirt is going to turn the seed into what it really was all along. It's going to reveal its true potential, which is to become a tree. And it becomes a tree, and it has fruit, and each fruit has a seed. Now, that's an upgrade, because I took a little seed. How much is a seed worth? You can buy seed. Farmers buy seed. You buy a whole truckload of seed. So if you would divide, each seed is worth a fraction of a penny. So it has a value, but very little. You put it in the ground, and out comes this tree with fruit and seeds. And it's a major upgrade. But I want to tell you something. Not only is it an upgrade, it's an incomparable upgrade. When I say incomparable, I mean it's not like you're going to get double your money back, or triple your money, or even 1,000,000 times your money. You're going to get incomparable, infinite. Why? Because what really happens, you put that seed in the ground, not only does it multiply, potentially it's infinite. Potentially it's infinite, right? Because anyone can count the seeds in an apple, only God knows how many apples are in a seed. So potentially you put the seed in the ground, an infinite amount of seeds will come from that planting. Well, that's the same like with Shabbos. Shabbos seems like a nebuchal because she can't make her own cholent. Yeah, okay, fine, that's right, she can't do that for herself. But you want to know something? Cholent has a value. You can buy cholent. It's something money can buy. But you put cholent into Shabbos, okay? It's not stam, it's a Wednesday, and you're eating cholent because it tastes good. You take the cholent, you put it into Shabbos because Shabbos is the bride. Shabbos is the queen. And she takes the kigel and the cholent and all the nice stuff, and she turns that into warmth and light, a Jewish home, a family, a purpose and meaning, a reason to go out there for another 6 days. That the 6 days that go into her, yeah, she receives from. But the 6 days that come out of her, she gives to them, and what she gives to them, money cannot buy. Money cannot buy what Shabbos gives to the 6 days that come out of her. It's an incomparable upgrade. An incomparable upgrade. That's how every real Mikabel works. That's why Nasan is a palindrome, because real giving goes both ways. And that's what we mean when we say that more than the Palindrome means a word that goes, you can pronounce it forward or backward. Like, who are the son and father in Tanakh who are both palindromes? David ben Yishai. Okay. Anyways, you can tell that to your kids tonight. Have a little fun. At any rate, giving goes both ways. But not just giving, like, here, you take this seed, and then I'll wait, and then you give me back the seed. But rather, here, take this seed, and then you give me back potentially an infinite amount of seeds. That's how a real makabel works. And that's why we say, not just, like what the balabas does for the ani does something for the balabas. We don't say they both do it for each other. We say, more than the balabas does for the ani does for the balabas, right? We don't just say, you know what, I did for my students, but my students also did for me. I say, mitalmida yoisin mekulam. I got the most out of my students. Incomparable upgrade. I'll give you another example. Teresh b'chsav, teresh b'alpeh. Teresh b'chsav has a finite amount of letters. You cannot chas v'shalom take away one letter or even add one letter. It's done. That's how many letters it is. Teresh b'alpeh is infinite. Teresh b'alpeh is the makabel of teresh b'chsav. Abba Yosef Brata, like it says in the Zayah, that the father had a daughter. The father is teresh b'chsav, the daughter is teresh b'alpeh. Teresh b'chsav is finite. Teresh b'alpeh is infinite. Tucha Vrusa sitting in Manchester, and somebody comes with a chiddush. Teresh b'alpeh is continuing today. So Teresh b'alpeh is revealing endlessly revealing and giving back to Teresh b'chsav what was hidden within Teresh b'chsav to begin with. Now it's not like it wasn't there to begin with, because if it's a chiddush, like the Rogatchover once, somebody gave him a sefer of chiddushim, and the Rogatchover used to have a sharp way of talking. So he told the guy, you know what, these are chiddushim even Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know. In other words, bike spotters, you made it up. But really, koma shetalmid vasak asid lechadish, that everything that a sharp student is going to come up with, really, kvar nitna l'Moshe Sinai, Moshe already had it. But he had to be revealed. Like when Moshe saw Rabbi Akiva teaching, and he said, where did he get it? Halacha l'Moshe Sinai. So Rabbi Akiva was able to pull out from Tagin on the letters, Tile halachas. He didn't make it up, chas v'shalom. It was there already, had to be brought out. That's what a real makabel does. Okay, fine. So far, so good. That was like an hour's worth of chassidus in like 4 minutes. So you guys are really being good. I appreciate it. I asked for Rahmanas, and you guys are going above and beyond. Okay, so let's finish it off. Soul and body. Guf and neshama. And neshama and guf. That's a mishpia makabel. That's a mishpia makabel. Who's the mashpia? Who's the giver? The neshama is the giver, sure. The neshama gives the guf life. And more than just life, physical life. The neshama gives the guf a purpose, a mission. And the guf without the neshama is nothing. Nothing, has nothing. But once the neshama gives to the guf, what the guf gives to the neshama is incomparably greater. Because whatever a neshama can accomplish in Gan Eden, which is very nice, but whatever a neshama can accomplish in Gan Eden, when it comes down here, lamata, into this world, into a guf, with the challenges that we have, and with the bechira that we have, that's when there's an aliyah be'ein aroich, an incomparable ascent. That's when our mitzvahs have the power to actually transform the world, to actually reveal the infinite within the finite, to make this world holier than heaven, and to give Hashem what He really wants. And that's being the greatest makabel. When we give Hashem what He really wants. He gave us a world that's like a seed. We receive it and we give it back to Him with its full, infinite potential revealed. He implanted it there, it's really His. We only give to Him from His own. But we're the true mekablim. I mean, halavai, we should be, but I'll say it as a bracha. We should be true mekablim to receive the brachas that the Eibishter is giving us, to fulfill our shlichus, to do mitzvahs, to learn Torah, to live mission-oriented. Ani lo nivresi el l'shamash es koini. Schar mitzvah mitzvah. Extrinsic motivators, for sure not. And even tiny genelim haba, al tiyu kavod ma'asham shesarav al ma'anas l'kabel for us. We should just focus on our mission. That we are so lucky. Asherin matel chakenu. We don't have to do this stuff. We get to. Okay, thank you very much.